A AAA trap?
So I've been thinking a lot about AAA gaming recently, and one of the things that kind of interested me so much that I actually wanted to get on camera was this funny little idea of corporate capitalism and how AAA studios can take your favorite games and extract as much money out of you as possible, putting in the least amount of effort to actually make the game. You know, just some cynical...
This guy played like the new Star Wars Battlefront thing, I bet.
Existential dread kind of stuff, like normal weekday things. I truly believe that what we're experiencing right now is a bursting of the AAA bubble, a separation of corporate-made, passionless money grabs from the smaller but still incredibly fun and affordable games from AA studios and below.
I think that they also, like, the AAA games are calibrated in a way that, like, they over-calibrated for profit, basically.
Among other reasons, it's because the corporate structure is driven by a capitalist economy, and the capitalist economy is driven by the idea that rich people can get richer by owning things and draining the profit out of it. And this chase for higher profits using gaming as a Trojan horse for revenue generation is leading us into a period of AAA shovelware that costs millions of dollars and years of development to make, but still ends up broken and buggy and otherwise not fun at all. Capitalism will take an IP and drive it into the ground. Capitalism will take 10 years to develop a pirate game.
I actually don't think this is something that's because of capitalism. I think it's because of companies that have a profit incentive that makes them beholden to people who don't have a vested interest in the quality of the product. That's really what the issue is. Because a lot of companies operate in semi-capitalistic places. So capitalism will not necessarily. Like, you're talking about, like, I'm talking about a publicly traded company. Like, publicly traded companies are only one instance of that. It's like, how I was fucking this? What's this here? Are people unhappy about this? That's the definition of capitalism? What game is good that isn't capitalist? That's the thing. Is every game, like, the thing is that if you're putting a game out in our culture, that game exists in a capitalistic marketplace. It does. All games are capitalistic. Every single game is like this. So if you say that capitalism is the problem, then every single game is bad. So you're painting with such a broad brush that you might as well not be painting at all. Like, you're making a non-statement. So I think that we really should make a distinction between games that basically the people that are making the financial decisions and the people that are deciding what the company does don't have a vested financial interest in the long-term quality of the product. And so this happens with executives trying to min-max quarterly profits. This happens with shareholder fiduciary responsibility. And I think it can also happen with just some president or a CEO that's trying to meet a certain number so they can get a bonus. All of these things are the bad issue. I don't think that this is necessarily an outcome of capitalism because, again, there are other games that exist in capitalism that don't have this problem. So if capitalism is the universal variable, then why is it not affecting everything equally? I think that the real issue is that there are people that don't have a vested financial interest in the long-term health of the product. Baldur's Gate. Look at Baldur's Gate 3. Look at Helldivers. Look at Vampire Survivor.
Without any content, and the CEO will still call it a quadruple A game. Capitalism will release any game into the market because no matter the quality or amount of testing that's been completed, capitalism demands that you ensure a certain amount of money spent versus the money that you can make in return. I feel that plenty of the issues that we see with
I don't know if I agree with that. Let me hear that again.
Quality or quadruple A game. Capitalism will release any game into the market because
I don't think that's necessarily true.
No matter the quality or amount of testing that's been completed, capitalism demands that you ensure a certain amount of money spent versus the money that you can make in return.
I don't necessarily think that's true because there's a lot of instances of these games, like, very clearly there is a consequence to making bad video games. And that's why you've seen so many studios have to fire hundreds or thousands of people. There is absolutely a consequence for it, and that consequence is because of capitalism. It's because people bring out a game, nobody buys it, and then they lose all their money.
Plenty of the issues that we see with studios like Ubisoft, Activision Blizzard, Bethesda, Sony, Nintendo, Tencent, or Nexon. These issues come from the fact that the modern corporate system under capitalism simply does not foster great creativity and instead it actively works against it. So I want to talk about the corporate
I don't agree with that either. I think that there's a lot of games that, for example, Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 exists absolutely under capitalism, and people would consider it very creative. Same thing as, Helldivers 2. I mean, I guess Helldivers 2 isn't really super creative, but it does exist under capitalism. All of these games do. I don't necessarily how could you every single game, and how could you also look at old games as a frame of reference whenever back then it's not like capitalism is a new patch that we just got 10 years ago. Like, it's been like this for a long time. It's always been like this. Yeah, Elden Ring is capitalist. Yes. He's equating capitalism with corporate greed. Yeah, I think that's basically what he's saying. Is I agree with him where it's obviously, companies that only care about profits are really what the problem is. It's not necessarily capitalism fundamentally. Because if it was, then all products would be affected to some equal degree, and it doesn't seem like that's the case.
Structure of game companies for the third time on my channel, and how these corporations don't care about you, they care about money. They take products you love and squeeze the most profit that they can out of it while minimizing costs on development effort.
True.
And to me, it's extremely important that we keep talking about this in the gaming space because we as gamers are extremely susceptible to being taken advantage of. We identify ourselves based on the games that we like. We find meaning in the art of a game. We create relationships through the shared experience we have with other gamers. It's very possible that nostalgia may creep into our wallets where reason should be instead. So the more we talk about it, the more awareness we spread, and hopefully the more people stop falling into the AAA trap. Though really quick, I want to point out that this problem is not just in the gaming industry. This is something that's been ruining movies and TV shows for what feels like decades now. Just take a look at Marvel, Star Wars, Disney movies in general, half of the shit that Netflix puts out. It's unfortunate, but a lot of these big budget films are turning into corporate mush. By the numbers remakes or creatively bankrupt TV series that are really just there to capitalize on your attention span. Or
there's also the other meta of Disney remaking movies so they can keep the copyright on the movie, which is another factor. But I think, the reason why is because you think about it, if you're a movie studio and you're looking to invest $100 million, do you want to invest it into maybe a director that's had a couple of pretty popular movies, but who knows? Or do you want to go with a guy that's already made 3 other popular movies for you and go with Spider-Man? Because Spider-Man is going to make money. That's a fact. And this is one of the problems, again, and I think this does have to do with, companies that are not invested in the long-term growth of the product and of what they're making, is that they never think about, well, what's this going to do in 3 years? What's this going to do in 5 years? Because they're only thinking in 3-month intervals, right, with quarterly reports. So that's really what the issue is. And they're not invested in the outcome for that.
Nostalgia rather than doing anything creative or innovative. Corporations are a sign that an industry is booming. Any industry that makes money will have big corporations that control a large portion of it. Gaming is no different. Ubisoft, Nexon, Activision Blizzard. These are huge companies with thousands of employees that rake in hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars per year. So if they make so much money, you would think that corporations would be great for the industry. I mean, if so many people buy their products, wouldn't you think that the people like the corporations too? Well, yes and no. It's undeniable that people buy their products. That's why they've become corporations and continue to survive amongst the incredible amounts of new studios popping up every day. But that doesn't mean that their product is the best. For the most part, it just means that it's the most widely known, or that at one point it was the best and all other competition has been snuffed out. The best example I can give you is EA. EA puts out a Madden game every year. They put out FIFA every year. And every year they make a lot of money. And I mean,
because people buy it. That's the reason. People fucking buy it. It's not like they're being forced to buy FIFA, but they do it anyway.
A lot of money. But is Madden just the undeniable best football game out there? Well, in a world where there isn't much competition, of course it is. When's the last time you heard of a football game that wasn't Madden? Or a soccer game that wasn't FIFA? 2. Can you imagine a smaller dev studio trying to compete with these games? Point I'm trying to make is that these corporations have skillfully...
They can't because of licensing.
...work their way into a place where they have no competition. Any competitors, even other corporations, will have an extremely hard time creating games that can compete. So what does this mean to you? We as consumers are given an illusion of choice. In reality, we are being fed limited options with limited competition that could have driven these corporations to actually improve their game. Right now, we're seeing the consequences of a lack of competition in gaming. Pokemon games releasing broken, Halo games.
I think that really, I mean, there's always going to be a lack of competition with big games like FIFA because of like all of the secondary things like licensing and, getting characters' likeness and, making sure everything is up to date, all of that. I do definitely think that FIFA is kind of a really like nuanced example because of all those secondary factors. However, whenever I think about all the rest of them, I do think that really these kinds of things work themselves out in the free market. Like Pow World is a great example of that. And I think that's why having a free market is great. It's because you can't just keep making a Pokemon game forever and ever and ever and have people keep buying it. Because there have been instances where there are games that, the IP is destroyed and nobody's buying or playing the game anymore. It does happen.
Releasing without content. Call of Duty games don't really change much, neither do Assassin's Creed games.
No.
MMORPGs take forever to make, and if you make one, there's no guarantee that you're going to be able to pull people away from the most popular games like World of Warcraft, RuneScape, or Final Fantasy. Just recently, we had a Star Wars Battlefront remake release, and it was worse in quality than the originals that came out in the early 2000s.
Instead of Battlefront fans being treated to a bit of fan service, this collection is a shameless money-grubbing exploit of said fan base. This is nothing more than a cold-blooded attempt to exploit people's nostalgia, which is the most disrespectful thing you could do with a game like this.
We need to be very
welcome to every fucking remake. Yeah, true.
Aware of the fact that gaming companies are not worried about whether or not you are happy with your choices of games. They aren't going to go the extra mile beyond their planned budget just to make sure that the game they're making is perfect. Everything is calculated. Gaming companies are only worried about making as much profit as they can with as minimal of costs as possible. Now you may say, but Jack, some game studios love their fan base and are constantly communicating with their fans to give them what they want. Don't they actually care? Yes, the companies do care about what you think. No, they don't do that because they care about you specifically. They will develop the game to your liking because if enough people agree with you and stop buying their game, it's beneficial for them to do what you're asking and get people buying again.
Yeah,
this is an example of aligned interests. See, corporations will basically align themselves with whatever social cause or whatever gaming trend makes them the most money. Why do you think WB Games is doubling down on live service?
Well, that's not really a bad thing. I mean, I don't think we can really categorize a company that's... I don't think this is bad. I mean, what he's saying is that the company is going to make the product that the consumers want. Like, that's good. What else would you want them to do?
Models, even though Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League was pretty much a disaster, it's because the live service model has proven to be the safest investment for a hefty return.
Sir, the game isn't even finished. Only half of it even works. Oh, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The reason smaller studios can't get away with stuff like this is because they need their interests to align with customers more often in order to get customers to buy their product. They are the underdog, the new people on the block. They need to make sure their game is good enough that the player base sticks around instead of going to the other AAA options that had a much larger marketing or
That's a good point, yeah.
production budget.
That's true.
And I hate to be so cynical, but that's just how business works. Sometimes the customer's interests align with the company, sometimes it doesn't. The business will decide what they do based on the amount of money that they make from it, not how happy it'll make customers. If you want to look at it...
Well, I don't think that's true either. I think that making customers happy makes you a lot of money in a lot of cases. I think they can be one and the same. And really, it's about how you approach it and what the company is doing in that situation. Like, of course, there's going to be times where a company is doing something and it's only for money, like making a pay-to-win feature in a game. But in a lot of cases, like, this is kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. So it's like if the company is financially benefited by doing something that you like, then they're only doing that because they're trying to steal your money. But if they're doing something that you don't like, well, then they're disconnected and they don't know what people want and they don't care what people want. So there's really no way that based with this logic, you can have a situation where a game is actually is authentically good. It's basically like there's no way. It's either, you're right or they're lying.
Another way, ask yourself the question, do you think that if hundreds of thousands of people complain about predatory cash shops, that the mobile games will stop having predatory cash shops? No.
Yes. Absolutely. Because if enough people complained about it, then people would stop buying it. Absolutely. The problem is that people don't. Yes and no? Yes or no? Well, it's kind of both. I mean, to be fair. Like, the truth is that the reason why Candy Crush has a cash shop is because people buy the things on the cash shop. If people stopped buying the things on the cash shop would go away. And maybe the game would go away too. Let me tell you this. If whenever Blizzard brought out their first store mount, 85% of the WoW player base immediately unsubscribed that day. Bobby Kotick himself would have written a handwritten apology to the World of Warcraft community and promised to never add mounts again. But that didn't happen because people, like, again, and this is the issue that, like, I think he's probably the same as me, is that we're, in a lot of cases, in an echo chamber with games. Like, we're talking, like, he's a 30-year-old man, probably. I'm a 30-year-old man. And we're sitting here talking about how good games used to be and how everybody hates this stuff. But the truth is that we're not the norm. We're not the majority. We're the top 5%. We're the top 10%. So whenever a game is made for market, they're not thinking about the 10%. They're thinking about the 90, even less. Maybe you're right.
Because for every hundreds of thousands of people complaining about the cash shop, there are 10 people spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in that cash shop. And if corporations are psychologically manipulating customers into spending more money, creating barriers to entry that prevent any real competition, making budget cuts while releasing games of questionable quality, and doing all of that while trying to spread a message of, we do this for you, dear consumer. If the corporation is evil, wouldn't you expect the people working in the corporation to be evil too? Like little henchmen to a supervillain right out of a comic book? Obviously the answer is no. Not everyone that works at a corporation is evil, and to be fair, not every corporation is evil. But what we as consumers need to understand is that the corporate structure itself has been refined over time to help businesses be the most efficient at serving their purpose, which is to make money.
Right.
At the top will always be the board of directors, the president of the company, and the C-suite. These guys make all the decisions, and most of the time, their job is not to care about games, it's to care about the welfare of the business. But does this make them evil? Well, some of them might be, but it
doesn't make them evil and it doesn't make them good. And this is one thing that I really wish more people understood about companies, is that companies are not evil, nor are they good. They are amoral, like, devices and, like, objects or things that exist to make money. So, like, whenever a company is agreeing with your political opinion, they're only doing that so you have a more positive viewpoint of that company, and then you might buy their shit. They don't care about these problems. They don't care about those people. They don't care about any of it. The only thing they care about is making money. Now, I think that there are smaller companies that don't have this issue. But once you get into the publicly traded, large-scale company, you do obviously run into fiduciary responsibility, which is the obligation that the people that run publicly traded companies have to make the company more money. It's a literal law. So yeah, I do think that this is a big factor. I don't think companies are evil. I don't think they're good. And I wish more people stopped waiting for, like, stopped trying to hope that a company would reaffirm their viewpoint or reaffirm their values, because it's just simply not what companies are made to do.
Being an executive at a corporation doesn't inherently make you an evil person. Most of the time, it just means you're good at your job.
On my business card, I am a corporate president. In my mind, I am a game developer. But in my heart, I am a gamer.
There it is.
And this is relatively the same for all the employees below them. They're hired to do a job, and that job is related to some function that the business needs in order to make money. Now, of course, there will be plenty of people who do their job and are passionate about making a great game. I'm sure Ian Hazzikostas, the game director for WoW, truly wants to make the game better. He has always seemed very passionate, but he doesn't have the final say. If he makes a game that doesn't rake in more and more revenue every year, he will be seen as a failure in the eyes of the business. They may not fire him on the spot, but you best believe that he's going to be under an incredible amount of pressure to perform better for the company. What's up, everyone? Editor Jack here, and I have a treat for you. I actually got a hold of some real fake video footage of an actual fake Bethesda meeting where the game director of Starfield 2 is giving some executives a status update, and the executives, they make real fake changes on the spot. This proves how easy it is for the people in charge of the business side to change what the creative side does. Bobby, roll the tape. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Today we're going to be talking about the QA results for our next Starfield game named Starfield Plus. If we keep our current pace, we're looking
Starfield Plus. There's something about that is very unsettling because I could imagine that being real. I could very easily imagine Starfield Plus becoming real.
about 31 weeks or
Yeah,
7 months to
this is
deliver
bad.
fixes for all of these, assuming we don't find any more going forward. Any questions?
Yes, sir, Jack. This is Jim, your CMO. That is Chief Marketing Officer, if you don't know, Jack. You're telling me that to address all these bugs, it'll take 31 weeks, but that'll put us well past our targeted launch date, and I would really like to hit our targeted launch date because that puts the release of this game right before the holidays, and I would love to have something to sell for the holiday rush. I mean, that is a huge opportunity for some high return on investment here, and I don't think the company can afford to miss that.
They did this with PUBG. They pushed PUBG out of early access way too early. Microsoft
Jim,
did this.
Great point.
Yeah, see, this is Devin, CFO, and to add to Jim's point, I would really like to see us reduce the number of weeks it takes to fix all of these bugs, because I would really like to reduce the amount of strain on the budget by severely reducing the size of our QA team. So we need them to retest as many fixes as possible before I end their contracts.
Okay, not a problem. I'll see what I can do to speed up the pace of their testing. When did you want to cancel their contracts?
And next week.
After they're
All right,
finished.
I'll see
Yeah.
what I can do about that. Yeah.
Wynn, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think we really should be focusing on our internal devs, because they are the heart and soul of the game. Do you think that we can ask them to use their passion for game development to maybe work harder, maybe more hours in the day, to really push us past that finish line, sprinting the final 50 yards of the marathon?
Oh yeah, I'm sure they'd be so happy.
They call it a sprint. As far as I know, in software development, I've heard this term used a lot.
More of their time.
Yeah,
make
it's
this
not
game as
crunch,
perfect
it's a
as
sprint.
possible, especially
Yeah.
for no extra pay or guarantee of future employment once the game is launched.
Yeah, and while we're talking about the dev team, I would also like to hear from you, Lazarus. Lazarus, he's our chief diversity officer. I'm pretty sure we can secure some capital from investors who specifically look for Hispanics in video games.
Did you feel like we'd address this with our dev team, Lazarus? Lazarus, are you there? Okay, well, we can just ask him through email.
Jack, can you just double check with the devs that we put in a new Hispanic character in the game, like Miles Morales? Everyone loves Miles Morales. He's cool and Hispanic. So can you just put Miles Morales in Starfield Plus?
Yeah, sure. I think I can do that. You do know this.
I do think that there's a confirmation bias of to real. Yeah, I do think there's a confirmation bias where a lot of the companies that try to go for ESG points are creating bad games. So people view games that have representation worse because a lot of games try to go for representation because they can't stand on their own with gameplay. I think that definitely happens. Logically, that's what would make sense, right? Is if you can't secure investment with the gameplay quality and you can't secure investment with I don't know, what else besides gameplay quality, right? Gameplay quality. Well, then instead of that, now you're securing investment because of some sort of representation or ESG thing. So it would logically make sense that a lot of the games that have ESG funding, or at least a larger percentage of those games, would have lower quality games because they would need that funding, and in order to get that funding, they would have to change the game in that way.
It's a game about space exploration and creating your own spaceship, though, right? It doesn't really have any superheroes in it.
Yeah, that's not my problem. I'm just the money guy, not the creative game making guy. That's probably someone on your team.
Okay, so more crunch time to hit a holiday deadline. QA team will need to work faster to optimize their usefulness before they're fired. And Miles Morales. Okay, thanks for your time today, team. Please consider all the hard work I'm doing in your next round of promotions, or at least when you're looking at which games to cancel and who to fire. Okay, talk to you soon. So again, what does this mean for you, the customer? Why the hell am I taking up all your time talking about what people may already know? Well, here we go. Here's the big drop. Here's the main point I was building up to the entire time.
Here we go.
I want you, my dear viewer, to be prepared. Basically, I would like for us gamers to better protect ourselves against some of the disappointments that AAA gaming produces. If they get your money, they don't care about your complaint. At the end of the day,
I think that people get too emotionally invested into the outcome of a video game. And they get too mad whenever a game is bad or too happy whenever a game is good. I think that people should try to disconnect a little bit from the way that they consume entertainment. And I think that people treat entertainment too seriously nowadays, and it's not healthy. Bro, it costs fucking $100. Yeah, but like, I'm not just talking about like AAA games. I'm talking about like in general. I think that people just have like too much of an unhealthy relationship with entertainment media in general. Whether that's people that are super parasocial towards streamers, whether that's people that are, you know, crying about the Star Wars trailer, whether that's people that are spending $2,000 on Honkai Star Rail. I think that just really you have a lot of people that are just like so hyper invested emotionally and also financially in entertainment media that it's like a god. It's like their religion. It's really bad. And I think that also the companies try to like incentivize that. They try to cultivate that.
I feel that this structure leads to a conflict of interest. The gaming side of the company, the creative side of the house, is put in a position where it constantly fights with the business side of the company. And unfortunately, the business side will always win because games need money to be made and function. The world doesn't run on good vibes and fun games, it runs on cash. And that means that any complaint a dev may have is instantly trumped by the response, but this will make us more money. And this brings us back to the structure of corporations. It's not one person's fault, it's a system. The system was created to efficiently run a business, and that's it. Corporations don't foster creativity because
I think that really, whose fault is it? It's people's fault. Because if you decide to buy a game, like for example, Smilegate, which are the people who make Lost Ark, this is a privately owned company. So there actually isn't, like, there generally a lot of the big bad companies are the ones that are public, but that's not always true. So what ends up happening is that a lot of these companies are just doing it for money, but the reason why they keep doing it is because they keep getting money. So really, who's at fault is the customer. And that's the only person who can keep them accountable. Like, the government can't keep them accountable. The employees can't keep them accountable. Their shareholders can't realistically keep them accountable. The board, like, nobody can keep them accountable except for the customers. The customer is the bottom line. And if you're buying games that you think are bad, stop buying games that you think are bad. Stop giving these companies money if you think the games suck. Stop pre-ordering. Stop, buying into the hype. Stop buying $500 or $500 worth of microtransactions, because that's the reason why these games exist. And also, if a massive, like with any of these free-to-play games, it's true that free-to-play games make like 70% of their sales off of like 1% of their customer base. It's like some crazy fucking statistic like that, right? I think that's inaccurate, but it's something that's massively disproportionate, as you would pretty much assume, right? But the reason why that 1% is spending all the money is so they can eat the other 99. So in a video game or like a pay-to-win game that doesn't have a massive economy of other people playing, the game will die out. So the reason why these games are still successful is because people keep supporting them, even whenever, in a lot of cases, it would be against their best interest to do so.
That's not what they were meant to do. The structure has been put in place to make money based off data and educated decision making. And that's why creativity is only tolerated as long as you can prove with data that the creative investment is worth the risk.
Sure.
I'm being a bit dramatic, but basically, I went on this rant to spread awareness on protecting yourself against these corporations. Don't buy games based on pure trust in developers, because it may not be the developers that have the final say. Try not to fall victim to predatory microtransactions.
Yeah, you should just really, I think the problem is like people make too many decisions on hype and emotion. They're deciding everything that they're going to do based off of like, oh my God, this game is so good. Oh wow, the trailer is so good. It's like, how can you stop that except for like making people accountable to educating themselves? Streamers don't help with that. Streamers absolutely make it worse. They 100% do. And they also make it a lot better. Like, for example, I think that a lot of people, whenever a new game comes out, they're going to watch me. They're going to watch Lyric. They'll watch Charlie. They'll watch Chance. And they'll see one of us play the game, and they'll be like, or if it's an FPS, they're going to watch Shroud. They're going to look at it. They're going to see for themselves, is this any good? No? Okay, all right, I don't think I'm going to buy it. And that's it. That's what people need to do. Yep, there's a lot of people.
Because this validates the company's decision.
That doesn't happen? Wait, so you think that people don't watch streams and use streams to inform themselves on what games to buy? If that didn't happen, then I wouldn't be paid a ton of fucking money to play games on my stream. It absolutely happens. Do you think that they want to give some fucking loser that sits in their mom's attic a bunch of money to play their video game? No, they don't want to give me the fucking money, but they know that it'll make them more money, so they agree to it. This wasn't out of the goodness of their heart.
Be predatory and
Just
have
how it is.
microtransactions. Don't pre-order online games if the developer hasn't given you a reason to trust that the game will be actually good. Just be aware. And most of all, if a game comes out and it's shit and you happen to buy it, go get that refund.
Exactly.
Even in live service games, if the game is broken or not fun, don't just
By the
sit on
way, common Steam W, Steam for the day before, which is this game, did the craziest thing. Whenever this game came out, it was so bad, Steam proactively issued refunds to every single person who bought the game.
it. Don't trust that the developers
Everybody
will
got their
eventually
money
make
back.
it good. Refund the game.
And keep in mind, Steam is also a company.
Then buy it again when it gets good. Anyway, I turned this into more of a rant than I had hoped, but I still think that it's an interesting conversation to have with you all. I would love to hear your take on the gaming industry and how corporations can better foster creativity and innovation in games, rather than what they're meant to do right now, which is make a lot of money. But most importantly,
I think that we just need to go through a gaming renaissance. I think that's what's happening already. And you're seeing that happen with a lot of these smaller games, smaller scope games become so popular. I think that this is a problem that the free market will solve in time. And also, there will always be games that are garbage. There's always been games that are garbage. So, I mean, like, yeah, we can all talk about how bad Skull and Bones was, but let's be honest. There have been a lot of bad games that came out on GameCube. Like, it's not like GameCube didn't have any bad games or Super Nintendo didn't have any bad games. That's just how it is.
Hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you liked it, and subscribe for more content. I hope you enjoy these AAA gaming companies' games, and I can't wait to see what we talk about next.
Well, here's the problem. It's that he's talking to me, and I'm talking to you, and we're all having a conversation about how bad this is, but the people that are creating an economy for these games aren't even paying attention. Apparently I've watched one of his videos before. I'm subscribed to him. I give it a like. This is a good video. I mean, I don't think that you can ascribe a lot of this to capitalism, like as capitalism as the root cause. I think that really, like, capitalism might be the root cause, but it's an application of capitalism that is hyper profit driven and hyper like pessimistic in a way, right? Negative. So it's just greed. Yeah, basically it's just greed. Because again, Elden Ring, Baldur's Gate, all of these games exist in a capitalist economy that you get to make the choice whether you're going to play these games or not. So let's not get too far into that. But I do think that obviously he brings up a lot of good points with a lot of these games. And it's just, especially like with FIFA, he's totally right that there are no other sports games. And I don't think that there ever really will be because of, you know, how much structural advantage EA has over every other game. And I do find that to be problematic. It is.